Hi, my name is Sandra Shellnut, and I am a cruise ship refugee from the island of Roatan, Honduras. I started out in Roatan almost 10 years ago, and when I first came to my little island, I lived in a village very similar to Placencia. It's just a little village on the west end, maybe about 500 people, and then around 2006, they came into the village and the mayor let us know that we were going to get cruise ships. There was no discussion about it. The cruise ships were only going to come about 3 days a week. It was only going to be about 1,000 people, but they were going to be able to deal with it, and they were going to go ahead and build a village later, but they would go ahead and bring these cruise ship people in to the west end. What happened was there was no infrastructure for this kind of tourism in the little island of Roatan. The cruise ships arrived, they were rushed over to our west end. There was no facilities for them to speak of. So just imagine your beach right now out here in the front with 1,000 people on it, all wanting something to drink. They need water to wash off with. I don't know if you guys have issues with water, but we did. And then also we had problems providing electricity because it was a big drain having these ships come in, and the amenities were needed, ice and etc. So as they came in, it became total chaos. The tourists were unhappy, there weren't facilities for them, we didn't have it set up, and soon thereafter the cruise ship took over. The cruise ship people then organized themselves, they got their own buses, they got their own tour guides, they got their own places to feed these people, and our once quiet village was only inundated with tourists kind of walking through that didn't spend any money because they were going over to the village that was safe to eat, drink, swim, snorkel, and get out on our reefs. One of the things that they did do was coming in there to snorkel around, and they took everything out of that bay. They took every starfish, they took every sea fan, they took every shell they could find, and we watched as Half Moon Bay was walked away onto these cruise ships with their tour guides in tow. No control, absolutely no control. Again, we were promised that this would only happen 3 times a week. But what happened was the cruise ships were making money. And then they started to build their little village where they were going to have their pharmacy, their diamond store, the duty-free liquor store, and the places to feed these tourists. They also set up a chairlift so they could get those tourists into their little island paradise faster, which of course made the front page of USA Today, which in turn brought 2 more cruise ships. They ended up dredging our harbor and tore out the biggest staghorn corals that were in the Caribbean to put in a place for 3 cruise ships. So now, instead of just having the 1,000 people that we were going to have 3 days a week, we now have 10,200 people coming 7 days a week as the season begins in November. And again, the season for the cruise ships is November, December, January, February, March, and then to mid-April. And then it dies. The cruise ships don't come anymore. And so once again, there's still no employment on the island, even though very, very few people got a job with the cruise lines. Because once again, they came with their own tour guides, they came with their own snorkel guides, they came with their own drivers, their own vans, and they had a place to feed them. So it was a terrible disappointment. What they did leave was an empty bay with a scum of suntan lotion over the top, which in turn started to kill the seagrass in our little bay. They left their trash. They left very little money in the pockets of the local people that we could find. But the worst thing that they did is they ruined the kids. On the days that the cruise ships started to come, the children quit going to school because they could make more money begging than they could anywhere else. So all of a sudden, you've got all these little kids rushing these cruise ship buses, dragging their little sisters who are wearing shell jewelry made in China, trying to sell them things, and then if they can't sell them, they ask for money for pencils for school, which is not happening. So the children became these horrible, aggressive beggars. Then the cruise ship people wanted to buy part of the island. So then the next part of it was the development of Roatan. Thousands and thousands of condominiums went up as the place was being sold. But they didn't want to be down where the local people were. They wanted gated communities. They didn't bring in or hire the local people to do that construction. They brought in the people from the mainland so they could get cheap labor, which in turn created a ghetto on the island of Roatan called the Colonia. The Colonia is a village of about 7,000 or 8,000 poor workers that live in mud huts, diseased, raw sewage rolling down. The ultimate thing that happened is the gangs showed up. Tourists are very easy targets. So all of a sudden we started having things that were happening that we had never seen before. We started seeing prostitutes on the streets of this small village. And everyone here, you know everyone here, we knew what the girls were doing. Because those cruise ship people, they're not all just grandma and grandpa going on a cruise. One day they had a thing set up at a local bar right next to the school for a Chicks Gone Wild competition, wet t-shirt competition, while the little schoolgirls were walking by holding hands, watching this bump and grind and wet t-shirt contest that was being televised over national television from Roatan. So then you have the prostitution, we had the drug cartel come in, and then we started having armed robberies in the daylight in Roatan. Now, I have to say that somebody said, we've got to do something about this. So they created some tourist police to keep the tourists safe. They were no match for the cartel that came in to Roatan, which remains there to this day. All I want to say to you people here in Placencia, do not believe for one moment this won't alter your life and your children's life and your grandchildren's life. You think your resources are stretched now, or it may be tough getting through the dry season. It's nothing compared to what's going to happen when those cruise ships come in. It will change your life and your history and your culture forever. It will absolutely destroy it. I saw it happen. It happened within 14 months. That's how fast it happened. That's what I have to say. I feel very strongly about this. Please, please pay attention to what's going on in your community, because this is a beautiful place. I came here in 1979. It was a little village of 120 people. And it's still a beautiful and lovely, I mean, your people are fantastic. I love it here. But it will change. It will change faster than you can imagine.